CES 2019 is here, and first up is nVidia, so stay tuned. So yesterday, CEO Jensen took the stage to talk about all the things nVidia is bringing to CES this week for technology and advancements. They kind of went over some of the GPU graphics innovations throughout the years through various different video games, as well as talking about RTX. We've already kind of seen back in August, but this time kind of showcasing DLSS as well as all of the features that RTX is going to show. We kind of saw the reflection bits back in August, but now they're showing even more with shadow and lighting and everything that RTX can handle in that case as well. Some of the games that they showed off were Tomb Raider, Battlefield 5, Anthem, and a Chinese MMO called Justice. This was great because DLSS has not been fully shown off in anything other than a couple of benchmark numbers and pie graphs. But this time we're actually seeing it in the games and the performance numbers. And DLSS is very important because it kind of counteracts the performance loss we get from RTX. And they also talked about a lot of support that they have from different engines, such as Unity, Unreal, and Frostbite by DICE. All three of them fully backing RTX and the DLSS, which is a huge deal because those are some of the three biggest game engines that are being used by multiple companies right now. So that's a big deal for them. Microsoft is also supporting, of course, this is with the operating system using DirectX ray tracing DXR. So it's big to see them as a big supporter. During the full presentation, talking about RTX and DLSS, they showed off this kind of demo, a Russian demo, a kind of game demo of kind of like a Fallout laboratory. And they kind of rolled through the whole area using RTX to show off the lighting, everything. It was fully on. And every once in a while they would stop at a different scene to show the RTX on and then turn it off to show what happens when you don't have RTX in these scenarios. Now, most games weren't going to have this issue, but this game was built to show off the advantages of RTX. Now, we've already seen some of this stuff before back in August, but the big ones, that to me, was when they got to areas showing shadows, where normally shadows just show like a crisp shadow going up the wall or away, whereas this with RTX on, it actually calculates the proper lighting so the shadow shows correctly. They also showed off different areas with curved surfaces. Curved reflections was one that they really didn't show off back in August either, and this time they did. One demo showed a curved glass window and a robot with those all lit, kind of lights going off his head, and with RTX on, you saw that perfectly curved reflection the proper way. The reflection would get distorted. With RTX off, that doesn't happen. There's either no reflection or screen face doesn't know how to handle that, so it just shows a normal version of the object being reflected. So that was actually really cool to see that kind of demo specifically built for RTX and showing the on and off be more than we have seen with just Battlefield 5 in the past. So at this point, Jensen announced the GTX 2060. They kind of showed a video montage on the screen, and at that time he walked off to the side and grabbed one of the cards as he always does, which is great, showing up to everyone in the crowd, and then talked about some of the numbers. Quick ones would be 37 trillion tensor flops, 5 gig arrays a second, 6 gigs of GDDR6 memory, with a release date of January 15th and a price of $349. Now, this is an excellent price considering the benchmarks and performance that they showed off next, which include that it's equal to about a 1070 Ti. Now, I think those numbers were with DLSS-enabled games and scenarios, which isn't a big deal. That's actually great because RTX gets to use the DLSS, but the issue there would be that any games that don't, it's probably going to fall somewhere between a 1070 and a 1070 Ti, which is still great because the price of 1070s and 1070 Ti still sits at that 350 or above range. So at 350, you're getting an excellent card. It's a great deal, and you get the RTX benefits, which I'll talk more about those in a little bit. Some quick specs included 1920 CUDA cores, base clock of 1365 MHz, and on the Founders Edition, boost clock of 1680 MHz, 192-bit memory interface, 336 gigabit a second memory bandwidth, USB-C virtual link, and support for DVI-DL, DisplayPort, and HDI connectors. Now, whether we'll see DVI is unknown, but let's be hopeful. I know a lot of people wanted to see it on the 2080 and 2070 cards and didn't see them, so it's possible we might see them on the 2060. The Founders model is also about 4.5 inches tall and about 9 inches long, and with a max temp on the GPU of 88 degrees Celsius, 160 watts of power usage, with a recommended power supply of 500 watts and an 8-pin connector. So if you have that kind of setup, you're already looking at a great pickup at $350 for this card. He also announced bundles. Now, AMD does bundles all times where you can buy the card and get 2 or 3 games for free. At this point, he announced that if you buy a 2060 or 2070, you get Anthem or Battlefield 5 for free. Pick either one of those. Now, if you buy a 2080 or 2080 Ti, you get both. So that's an excellent deal. So now if you're looking at the 2060 and you already want Anthem, you're basically paying $300 for the card because the 50 is going for the game itself. Or you can just say you're paying $350 the card and you're getting game free. Either way, that is a steal, so I would jump on that. Next, he kind of hopped over to Gsync. There's two things, Gsync Ultimate and a little testing they're doing with async monitors. I'll jump in the Gsync Ultimate first, which is 3rd generation Gsync, and it's only working on 3 new monitors that they're talking about from Asus, HP, and Acer. And the reason for that is because the specs for this is 4K, 144 Hz, 4 millisecond panels, and HDR enabled, which there's very few monitors that even handle this. In fact, 3, like I said, 3 that got mentioned. Now, you're not going to go running down the street to go buy one of these because they're probably going to cost somewhere around $3,000 or more, as these are very rare and high-spec panels. The other news was that nVidia is testing all async monitors. That means all of AMD's FreeSync monitors have been getting tested. They've tested over 400 so far, with 12 passing their full certification. Support for these monitors will come later this month with the first 2019 game-ready driver. But for those monitors that haven't yet been validated, you can actually still turn on the Gsync tech to see if it will work on your monitor. It may work, it may not work at all, it may partially work, but you can always give it a test. For the monitors that were certified, the 12 monitors, they are labeled as Gsync Compatible, and what that means is they have passed a validated experience of no flicker, blinking artifacts, stuff like that. For the actual Gsync monitors, you get actually 300 tests of image quality, and then of course for the Ultimate, you get the best HDR 1000 nits advanced processor. Next, I talk about 4 different ways that RTX is going to help accelerate your workflow. The first one was Autodesk Arnold Interactive Rendering, which is 3ds and Maya. That means that when you're rendering, manipulating objects in 3D space and whatnot, that will be completely accelerated by the RTX cards. So no longer do you have to go and buy a Quadro card or the high-end cards to get this. Now you can get this on the lower end with the 2080, 2070s RTX cards, which is amazing for people who want to get into this area but don't have the money to buy those higher end cards and pro workstations. They also announced the acceleration for Red's 8K video editing software, which is huge because 8K video takes a lot of processing power to manipulate, render, and process. And so now you have the RTX line being able to accelerate that software, which is again huge because that will cut down the time and make the workflow faster for those people. Another big one is with streaming, and specifically with OBS encoding and streaming. So now we have nVidia, which is an encoder specifically for NVIDIA cards, but it just allows the graphics card to be utilized to help a little bit of the processing load for encoding video. In this case, you actually have an encoder that's built strictly for the RTX cards and utilizes this to a full extreme to give broadcast quality encoding and streaming. As well as OBS is going to have integrated SDK that allows the software to fully utilize the card as much as it can, so it doesn't have to use any of the CPU. So you take the burden away from the CPU to do all of your streaming, encoding, broadcasting, your scene switching, layers, everything, which is amazing. This was actually presented with the idea that people who have 2 systems for their streams, and with the second one being the one that does all the encoding, streaming, rendering, all that stuff, and you can put one of those RTX cards in, and how the RTX card can handle everything with the CPU being allowed to handle everything else left over in the system, which is huge. I actually kind of want to try that in a single setup with 2 RTX cards. I already have a 2080 Ti, and I could use that for the gaming, and maybe throw in a 2060 and have OBS utilize that card for everything. So I would take the load off of my processor for the streaming and encoding and let my processor just be running for just the games and anything else in the background, such as my Stream Deck or whatnot. I think that'd be huge, and I kind of want to see someone test that I think that's a big deal for the streaming community. And the last one was Turing VR Works for HTC Vive. And what this is that these cards already have the Virtual Link USB-C connector. It can increase the bandwidth of data going from the system to the headset. But along with that is eye tracking. And with eye tracking is what's called foveated rendering. Foveated rendering is where the system tracks your eye and where you're looking, and where you're specifically looking, that's where the resolution is at its fullest. And in the peripheral, the further out it gets, it lowers that resolution so it doesn't have to take all the processing power to render the entire display, but they can only render a portion of it. So wherever you look, it gets tracked and that part gets rendered at its best quality, highest resolution. And NVIDIA is utilizing this software with HTC. They're working with them to make this a reality. Now, they kind of hinted at HTC having some news by saying you should keep an eye out for their press conference. So I think we're going to see something about a new headset, probably with eye tracking and utilizing that virtual link connection. And the last thing to talk about, of course, was RTX and laptops. We knew this was coming, but now they're announcing that January 29th, 40 models are coming to the market, 17 of which have Max-Q. So the big deal here is with the new Max-Q, they've got these new thinner laptops. These are the Max-Q laptops, the ones that are like half an inch or smaller. And even with these new RTX 2060 and 2080 and 2070 models of Max-Q, they're even thinner. They actually showed off a couple, one by Asus and one by Gigabyte. In fact, on stage, Jensen was holding one of the Gigabyte RTX 2080 Max-Q models running an i7-8750H with 16 gigs of memory, running Battlefield 5 with RTX on, I believe at 1080 resolution, and it seemed to run really well. Now, it's not a perfect standard to base on how the quality and rendering power of the system is, as the game wasn't really doing anything. It was actually him controlling it, so for once it was an actual demo, but he wasn't doing anything since he was on stage. He tried to move the character back and forth and shoot the gun a couple times, but outside of that, the only movement on screen was another player running past the screen every so often. So it wasn't a great example of what the power is, but it seemed like it was running really well, and that was a good testament anyway that they even brought on stage to try this. So that was great. But that was it for nVidia this week at CES. Stay tuned for more. There's more coming up. We have HTC, Elgato, AMD, and Intel, and I'm going to try and get coverage on more other ones. But those are the four I'm going to be focusing on next. I believe the next one coming up is Elgato and then HTC, with AMD and Intel, I believe, on Wednesday. So stay tuned for those. If you have any questions, leave them below. If it's a big enough topic, I'll make a new video. I'll try to get more research on any of the questions you guys have about any of the products. If there's a certain one you want me to try and find out more information on CES that's not covered in any of these 5, let me know and I'll see what I can find out. But thank you guys for watching, and you guys have a great one.